Last but not least, Helen Young Hayes, financial professional and advisor, will talk to us about what it means to see the whole picture. Helen, if you want to come up, start with the video.
Sioux City, got an emergency for you. All right. I got a United aircraft coming in, lost number 2 engine. Having a hard time controlling the aircraft right now.
Okay, so you know we have almost no controllability. Very little elevator and almost no aileron. We're controlling the turns by power. We can only turn right, we can't turn left.
United 232 Heavy, understand, sir. You can only make right turns?
That's affirmative. I have serious doubts about making the airport. Have you got someplace near there that we might be able to ditch? Unless we get control of this airplane, we're going to put it down wherever it happens to be.
United 232 Heavy, Sioux City Airport's about 12 o'clock and 36 miles.
Okay, we're trying to go straight. We're not having much luck.
And United 232 Heavy, did you get the souls on board count?
292.
Roger, thank you.
Okay, United 232, we're starting a left turn back to the airport. Since we have no hydraulics, braking is going to really be a problem. I would suggest the equipment be towards the far end of the runway.
And United 232 Heavy, if you can't make the airport, sir, there is an interstate that runs north to south to the east side of the airport. It's a 4-lane interstate.
We're just passing it right now. We're going to craft the airport.
United 232 Heavy, roger. And advise when you get the airport in sight.
Got the runway in sight. We'll be with you very shortly.
You're cleared to land on any runway.
You want to be particular and make it a runway, huh? Isolate this. Plane of 19, he's coming down real fast down the south end. Okay, all right, come over there. He's on fire. Down.
Take a look at my body, look at my hands. There's so much here that I don't understand. Your face saving promises, whispered like prayers. I don't need them, 'cause I've been treated so wrong. I've been treated so long, as if I'm becoming untouchable. Well, contempt loves the silence, it thrives in the dark, and fine winding tendrils that strangle the heart. They say that promises sweeten the blow, but I don't need them. No, I don't need them. I've been treated so wrong, I've been treated so long, as if I'm becoming untouchable. I'm the slow dying fly, I'm the frost killing now, sweet turning sour and untouchable.
I wasn't originally scheduled to be on Flight 232. Originally, I was scheduled on the 7 a.m. flight from Denver to Chicago, but when I arrived at the airport, I learned that flight had been canceled and I had been rebooked on the 3 p.m. flight. However, I would have missed my business meeting in Cincinnati, so I had myself rebooked on Flight 232. The flight started out uneventfully. I said hi to the guy sitting next to me in seat 9A. He was an aerospace engineer named Jerry, and I started working. The flight attendants were chatting and clearing away the lunch trays. Suddenly, we heard an explosion. It sounded like a bomb had gone off. The plane dropped in the air, and then it started flying again. The captain came on the intercom immediately. His voice was calm. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have just lost our number 2 engine. But don't worry. We still have plenty of power to get to Chicago. We'll just be a little late getting in." My heart stopped. We lost an engine. I looked at my neighbor, and he said, "Oh, yeah, this is a DC-10. We have 2 more engines, plenty of power to get to Chicago." My heart was racing. But the flight attendant started clearing the trays again and chatting, and I thought, oh, this will be a great story for the office. I pulled out my work and started working again, but I felt nauseous. I couldn't concentrate. And so I put my reading away. Just as I put my reading away, the captain came on the intercom again. His voice was very serious. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will not be landing in Chicago after all. We have sustained tail damage. Instead, we will attempt an emergency landing in Sioux City, Iowa, in 35 minutes. And I'm not going to kid you folks, it's going to be rough." I closed my eyes and I started praying. I didn't know what he meant by rough. I didn't know that we were in a plane that had lost all ability to turn. But as I closed my eyes, I could see the pilot's hands, and I pictured their hands on the flight controls. And I prayed for their hands. I asked God to touch their hands, to show them what to do, to guide their hands. Over and over again, I thought of the pilots. I didn't learn until 17 years later, in 2006, just how my prayers were answered specifically. I met a United pilot after I'd given a talk on Flight 232. After my talk, the pilot came running up to meet me. He said, Helen, you have just explained the mystery of Flight 232. And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You don't understand. We pilots, we in the industry, we know every minute of that flight. We study the flight. We practice. We try to simulate in the simulator that landing." And he said, "But until today, I've never understood how those pilots landed the plane. You see, it's humanly impossible to calibrate your hands just so that you can land the plane." The pilots discovered that by varying the thrust of the remaining 2 engines, they gunned the left engine, they gunned the right engine, they were able to steer the plane. But in the tens of thousands of flight simulations since then, no one has been able to recreate the landing. What no one has recreated, what was humanly impossible, happened that day and was made a reality. We received a miracle. 184 people survived a crash landing in a jet that had no brakes and no steering. No, I wasn't originally scheduled to be on Flight 232, but I feel a strong sense of destiny that I was meant to be on Flight 232. I prayed, and God answered. But what do I do with that information? How did that affect who I became after that summer day? Well, certainly being on a plane that lost all flight controls, having my 27-year-old life interrupted, had several immediate effects on me. I was brought face to face with how little of our life is actually in our control, and how fragile indeed is life. Success, which I had previously defined as being the best that I could be in everything that I did, was just something I took for granted. Success was something I did. Economics degree, Yale graduate, Wall Street career, wonderful husband. But what I did was no longer within my grasp. During the crash landing, I suffered 2nd and 3rd degree burns and head, neck, and back injuries. Being able to work, being able to walk without pain, having children someday, all of that was suddenly threatened. Before the crash, everything I did with energy. I did with excellence. I was all about doing. And like many of you, I felt unlimited. Suddenly, though, I was limited. I was exhausted. I was in constant pain. And as I slowed down to let my body heal, I ceased doing. I stopped doing everything that looked productive, and I stopped doing everything that looked like succeeding. And I started simply being. I found a new focus, and I began to see everything differently. My definition of success, indeed my hunger for success, my perspective was all profoundly changed, and my vision has never been the same. My gaze, first of all, went deep. It went deep. Like an ultrasound device that hovers over the skin to reveal what lies inside, beyond the activities that I had previously excelled at, beyond even my intellect. As I gazed deeper, I asked myself, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What is my calling? As I deepened my gaze, I began to see myself as an integrated person, body, mind, spirit, soul. I began to see myself not merely as what I do and what I possess, but as who I become, who I am still becoming. I committed to nurturing a rich inner life, not just of intellect, but also of calling and faith. Today, we can live our lives on the exterior. We can live lives that can be viewed and liked and posted, and we can neglect the invisible interior self. In the words of David Brooks, the New York Times journalist, we can spend all of our energy on those resume virtues, those things that you and I post on LinkedIn. We can spend all of our time on those, and we can neglect the invisible side of ourselves, those parts of us that he calls eulogy virtues, those things we will be actually loved and remembered for. I committed myself to pursuing the paradoxical, upside-down, inside-out life of faith. To have abundant life, you must first surrender your life. To receive, you must first give. To find yourself, you must lose yourself. To love God, you must love others. I committed to a life that included not just doing and possessing and producing and being efficient, but of prayer and meditation and the pursuit of a transcendent purpose. My perspective, my vision changed also as I widened my gaze, like taking a pano shot on your smartphone. I really began to see beyond myself and my family, beyond my friends and my colleagues, and I began to perceive individuals that I hadn't seen before. At first, it meant looking at people as more than numbers and concepts and even more than causes, but looking at them as individuals. I started seeing the marginalized youth who are disadvantaged in my country because their skin is the wrong color. I began seeing the homeless families in my hometown of Denver, Colorado, some 40,000 individuals who are invisible to those of us who live and work in the right neighborhoods. I expanded my vision, and I saw the 48 million children who are orphaned and abandoned in Africa, victims of the AIDS pandemic. My vision widened, and as it widened, I began to see. And as I saw, I began to commit. I began to give. I began to give money. Then I gave more money. I tested my definition of generosity, and I retested my definition of generosity, and I am still retesting my definition of generosity. I began volunteering. I began advising. I began redefining my definition of investing. Previously, I was a fund manager, and I managed $50 billion in assets. And as a personal manager, I was all about returns. I've been redefining what it is to invest and what really impacts your bottom line. The gaze widening has not stopped, and my perception keeps changing. I keep seeing individuals that I didn't see before. Last year, I started wondering, what is it that keeps people trapped in poverty? After they've beaten homelessness, after they've beaten addiction, after they've come out of jail, why is it that so many people cycle back down into poverty and never escape? And so I'm starting a company, launching in the next month, to create a job support and a job placement program and business for individuals who are transitioning out of poverty and helping them connect with good employers and real jobs. My perspective changed also as I lengthened my gaze to see beyond the here and now and to understand my role in a story that predates me and that will continue on after me. The lifespan of an average American woman is 78 years. I was 27 years old when I almost lost my life. 78, 27, it's also short. We are in so many ways just a wisp, a vapor. I began to lengthen my gaze prior to 1962, the year I was born, and beyond when this heart, at the age of 78 or 27 or 53, would stop beating. And I began to see myself as part of the story that transcends this time. I looked beyond this external world and saw myself as a thread in the quilt that contains all of humanity and goes on and on and on. Viktor Frankl, the Austrian psychologist and Holocaust survivor, once said, "The angels are lost in a perpetual contemplation of an infinite glory." I want to be lost in a perpetual contemplation of an infinite glory. I want to weave myself into the beating heart of God. I invite you today and on the screens to take a journey with me of vision and to look within, deep, deep within, past your exterior shell, past your activities, past your resume. Gaze deep inside and perceive. With me, commit to the flourishing of your invisible self. I invite you to widen your gaze. Can you keep the lens equally focused as you expand your vision, maintaining your perspective of yourself while seeing people who were previously invisible? And can you lengthen your gaze? Can you perceive beyond today? Beyond this moment, beyond this glorious gathering, beyond this year? Can you see beyond your lifespan? Can you come sit with me on the edge of eternity? Look over the edge. And redefine as your gaze goes deep and wide and long. Redefine success. I look forward to meeting you all at the Speaker's Corner.